In a small, quiet town where everyone seemed to know each other, there lived a boy who didn't quite fit in. His name was Malik, and he was different, not just because of the color of his skin, but also because of how he carried himself. Quiet, reserved, and always lost in thought, Malik stood out in ways that made him an easy target for bullies. Every morning, as he walked to school with his worn-out backpack slung over one shoulder, kids would snicker behind his back. Some called him names like charcoal or trash bag, laughing cruelly at his second-hand clothes and scuffed sneakers. Others went further. They tripped him in the hallway, knocked his books out of his hands, or whispered hurtful things loud enough for him to hear. Malik never fought back. Instead, he kept his head down, pretending not to notice. Deep inside, though, every word cut deeper than anyone could imagine. But what no one realized, what they couldn't possibly have guessed, was that beneath his calm exterior lay a mind, sharper than anyone else's in the entire school. You see, Malik wasn't just another kid trying to survive middle school. He had secrets. Secrets that, if revealed, would leave everyone speechless. While most kids spent their evenings playing video games or scrolling through social media, Malik did something completely different. After finishing his chores for his hard-working single mother, who juggled 2 jobs just to keep food on the table, he would sit by candlelight and dive into worlds most people couldn't even dream of. He devoured books about science, math, and technology. Physics equations fascinated him, programming languages intrigued him, and engineering, that was his true passion. With scraps of paper and whatever materials he could find around the house, he designed machines and solved problems that even adults struggled to understand. But here's the thing. Malik never showed anyone this side of him. Not his teachers, not his classmates, and certainly not the bullies who mocked him daily. To them, he was just the poor black boy who didn't belong. They assumed he was dumb, lazy, or both. Little did they know, Malik was solving complex puzzles in his head while they were busy cracking jokes at his expense. One day, during math class, the teacher wrote a particularly tricky problem on the board. No one could figure it out, not even the smartest students in the room. Everyone stared blankly until the teacher asked, "Does anyone want to try?" Silence filled the classroom. Then, almost hesitantly, Malik raised his hand. The moment he spoke, giving the correct answer along with a clear explanation, jaws dropped. For a brief second, the bullies looked stunned, but soon enough they shrugged it off, convincing themselves it must have been a fluke. And so, life continued as usual. Malik endured the teasing, the shoving, the constant reminders that he didn't belong. Yet, despite all the pain, he refused to let bitterness consume him. Instead, he channeled his energy into his work. Every insult became fuel for his determination. Every shove in the hallway pushed him closer to proving himself, not just to them, but to the world. But Malik wasn't doing this for revenge. It wasn't about showing up the bullies or rubbing their faces in his success. What drove him was something much bigger, the desire to create something meaningful, something that could change lives. He dreamed of building inventions that would help people, things that could make the world a better place. Little did anyone know, Malik was already well on his way. Hidden away in his tiny bedroom, surrounded by piles of notes and sketches, he was working on ideas that would one day astonish everyone. All he needed was the right opportunity, a chance to step out of the shadows and show the world what he was truly capable of. For now, though, he remained silent, patient, waiting. Because Malik knew something the bullies didn't. Sometimes the quietest voices are the ones that roar the loudest when the time is right. Malik's life took a sharp turn one afternoon when he overheard a group of students talking excitedly in the school cafeteria. They were bragging about entering a national science competition, a contest that promised scholarships, internships, and recognition for the winners. The more Malik listened, the more intrigued he became. This wasn't just any competition. It was a chance to showcase talent on a massive platform, a chance to prove himself to the world. For days after that, Malik couldn't stop thinking about it. He began researching everything he could about the competition. What kind of projects had won in the past? What were the rules? How did someone even enter? The more he learned, the clearer it became. This was his moment, his chance to step out of the shadows and show what he was truly capable of. But there was a problem. Actually, several problems. First, entering the competition required parental consent, something Malik knew his mother wouldn't have time to focus on. She worked 2 jobs and barely had enough energy to sleep at night, let alone fill out forms or write permission slips. Second, there was an entry fee, a fee that might as well have been $1 million given Malik's circumstances. And third, if he entered, he risked exposing his secret project to the very people who bullied him every day. If they found out what he was working on before he was ready, they'd do everything in their power to tear him down. Despite these challenges, Malik refused to give up. He decided to take things one step at a time. First, he needed to build something impressive enough to win. Using old electronics he scavenged from junkyards and spare parts donated by a kind neighbor, Malik started piecing together a prototype. It was an ambitious idea, a device that could convert ambient sound waves like traffic noise or conversations into usable energy. On paper, it sounded impossible, but Malik didn't believe in limits. He spent every free moment tinkering, with wires, circuits, and code, determined to make his vision a reality. As weeks turned into months, Malik's invention began taking shape. It wasn't perfect yet, but it worked. When he tested it for the first time, holding the small machine in his hands and watching it light up a tiny bulb using nothing but the hum of his own voice, he felt a rush of pride, unlike anything he'd ever experienced. For the first time, he allowed himself to dream big. Maybe, just maybe, he really could win this competition. But dreams don't pay bills or cover entry fees. Malik still needed money to officially submit his project. That's when he came up with another plan. He started offering tutoring services to younger kids in the neighborhood. At first, it was just a few students who needed help with math homework. Word quickly spread, though, about the quiet boy with the magic brain. Parents were amazed by how much their children improved under Malik's guidance. Before long, he had a steady stream of clients, each paying a small fee for his help. It wasn't easy balancing tutoring with his schoolwork, chores, and late-night sessions building his invention, but Malik pushed through. Every coin he earned went straight toward the competition fee. Slowly but surely, he saved enough to cover the cost. Still, he remained cautious. He didn't tell anyone, not even the kids he tutored, about his real goal. To them, he was just a helpful older student. To the bullies, he was still the same invisible target they loved to torment. As the submission deadline drew closer, Malik grew increasingly anxious. He knew he couldn't afford any mistakes. One wrong move, and everything he'd worked so hard for could fall apart. So, he kept his head down, avoiding attention at all costs. During class, he stayed quiet unless absolutely necessary. In the hallways, he walked with his eyes glued to the floor, hoping to blend into the background. But sometimes, no matter how careful you are, trouble finds you anyway. One day, as Malik sat in the library during lunch, sketching blueprints for his invention, he noticed a shadow looming over him. Looking up, he saw Jason, the leader of the group that bullied him daily, standing there with a smirk on his face. "What are you doing here?" Jason asked, snatching the notebook out of Malik's hands before he could react. Jason flipped through the pages, his grin widening as he saw the detailed diagrams and equations. "What is this? Some kind of science project? Seriously?" Malik's heart sank. He reached for the notebook, but Jason held it out of reach. "You're such a loser," Jason sneered. "Who do you think you are trying to act smart? This isn't your world, buddy." The words stung, but Malik forced himself to stay calm. "Give it back," he said firmly, though his voice trembled slightly. Jason laughed. "Or what? You gonna cry? Go ahead, try something. See what happens." For a moment, Malik considered fighting back. But he knew better. Getting into trouble now would only jeopardize his chances of entering the competition. Instead, he clenched his fists, swallowed his anger, and repeated, I need that back." Eventually, Jason tossed the notebook onto the table and walked away, laughing with his friends. But Malik could see the wheels turning in Jason's head. He knew this wasn't over. Jason had seen something valuable, something Malik had tried so hard to keep hidden. And Malik had no doubt that Jason would use it against him somehow. That night, lying awake in bed, Malik replayed the scene in his mind over and over again. He felt a mix of fear and frustration, but also resolve. No matter what Jason or anyone else did, Malik wasn't going to let them stop him. He had come too far to give up now. With renewed determination, Malik vowed to finish his invention and submit it to the competition, no matter the obstacles. He didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain: he was ready to fight for his dream. The tension in Malik's life reached a boiling point after Jason discovered his invention. It wasn't just the bullying anymore. Now, there was a new layer of danger. Jason and his crew started following Malik more closely, watching his every move. They whispered among themselves whenever he passed by, their eyes narrowing with suspicion. Malik could feel it, the weight of their curiosity pressing down on him like a storm cloud ready to burst. One afternoon, as Malik walked home from school, he noticed a group of kids trailing behind him. He recognized them instantly: Jason and, two of his closest friends. At first they kept their distance, but as Malik turned onto his street, they quickened their pace. His heart began to race. He glanced over his shoulder, debating whether to run or confront them, but before he could decide, they were already closing in. "Hey, genius," Jason called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What's the hurry? Got somewhere important to be?" Malik stopped walking and turned to face them. He tried to keep his expression calm even though his insides were churning. "Leave me alone," he said firmly, his voice steady despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. Jason smirked, stepping closer until he was standing toe-to-toe with Malik. "Oh, we're not gonna hurt you," he said, feigning innocence. "We're just curious. What exactly are you hiding? That notebook looked pretty interesting." Malik didn't respond. He knew better than to give anything away. Instead, he tightened his grip on his backpack and took a step back, hoping to create some distance, but Jason wasn't done yet. "You think you're better than us, don't you?" Jason continued, his tone shifting from mocking to angry. "Acting all quiet and mysterious like you've got some big secret. Well, guess what? We don't believe you. Someone like you couldn't possibly come up with something real." Malik felt a surge of anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay silent. He'd learned long ago that arguing with people like Jason only made things worse, so instead he stared at the ground, pretending not to care. But Jason wasn't satisfied. He grabbed Malik's arm and yanked him forward. "Show us," he demanded. "Show us whatever it is you've been working on. Or are you too scared?" Malik wrenched his arm free and backed away, his mind racing. He needed to get home, to safety, but he also knew that running would only make them more suspicious. Taking a deep breath, he glared at Jason and said, "You'll never understand." With that, he turned and sprinted toward his house, leaving Jason and his friends standing in stunned silence. When he finally reached his front door, he slammed it shut and locked it behind him, his hands trembling as he leaned against the wood. For a moment, he allowed himself to breathe, closing his eyes and trying to calm his pounding heart. Later that evening, Malik sat at his desk, staring blankly at the half-finished prototype of his invention. The incident with Jason had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. He knew they wouldn't stop, not now that they'd seen a glimpse of what he was capable of. If he didn't act fast, they might try to sabotage everything he'd worked so hard for. That's when an idea struck him. What if he could throw them off track, distract them long enough to finish his project and submit it to the competition? It was risky, but it was the only plan he could think of. The next day at school, Malik deliberately left his notebook unattended during lunch. He placed it casually on the cafeteria table while he went to grab a drink from the vending machine, knowing full well that someone would take the bait. Sure enough, when he returned, the notebook was gone, and so was Jason. For the rest of the day, Malik played it cool, acting as though nothing was wrong. Inside, however, he was bracing himself for the fallout. He didn't have to wait long. By the time he got home that evening, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a picture of his blueprints, accompanied by a single line of text. "Stay in your lane." Malik's stomach dropped. They weren't just curious anymore. They were threatening him. Still, he refused to let fear dictate his actions. With renewed determination, he locked himself in his room and worked tirelessly through the night, refining his invention and preparing his submission materials. He knew the clock was ticking, and he couldn't afford to waste a single second. 2 days later, disaster struck. Malik came home from school to find his bedroom in disarray. Drawers were pulled out, papers scattered across the floor, and his precious prototype, his pride and joy, was nowhere to be found. A note lay on his bed, written in crude handwriting. "This isn't over." Anger surged through Malik as he read the words. How dare they? After all the sacrifices he'd made, all the nights he'd spent pouring his heart into this project, they had the audacity to steal it from him. For a moment, he considered giving up. What was the point of fighting, if the world was determined to crush him? But then he remembered why he started this journey in the first place. It wasn't about revenge or proving his bullies wrong. It was about creating something meaningful, something that could help others. And he wasn't going to let anyone take that away from him. With gritted teeth, Malik gathered the scraps of materials he had left, and set to work. He rebuilt his invention piece by piece, using whatever he could salvage from around the house. It wasn't perfect. It lacked the polish and precision of the original. But it worked. Barely. As dawn broke, the next morning Malik powered up the device and watched as it lit up a small bulb, fueled entirely by sound waves. Exhaustion washed over him, but he smiled faintly. He had done it. The final hurdle came when Malik submitted his entry to the competition. Without his mother's permission slip or access to the resources he needed to perfect his project, he relied on Mrs. Thompson, a kind teacher who had always believed in him, to vouch for his integrity. She helped him document his progress and ensured his submission met the requirements just minutes before the deadline. As Malik hit the submit button, a wave of relief washed over him. No matter what happened next, he had taken a stand. He had shown the world and himself that he was more than the labels others had placed on him. And deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. The weeks following Malik's submission to the competition were a blur of nerves and anticipation. Every day felt like an eternity as he waited for the results, unsure whether his hastily rebuilt invention would be enough to impress the judges. But the hardest part wasn't the waiting. It was facing the aftermath of what Jason and his crew had done. Word spread quickly around school that Malik had entered the science competition. At first, no one believed it. Him? Really? Some kids whispered when they heard the news. Others laughed outright, dismissing the idea entirely. "There's no way someone like him could come up with something real," one student said loudly during lunch, earning nods of agreement from their friends. Malik tried to ignore the comments, keeping his head down and focusing on his studies. But the weight of everyone's doubt pressed heavily on him. Even teachers seemed skeptical. When Mr. Carter, the science teacher, asked Malik about his project in class, his tone carried an edge of disbelief. "So tell us, Malik, what exactly did you build?" For a moment, Malik hesitated. He wanted to explain everything. The countless hours spent designing, the setbacks, the stolen prototype, but he knew better than to share too much. Instead, he simply replied, "It's a device that converts sound waves into usable energy." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed the frustration simmering beneath the surface. Some students snickered at his response, while others rolled their eyes. A few even muttered under their breath, "Yeah, right, like that's possible." But Malik didn't flinch. He had grown accustomed to being underestimated, and he refused to let their ridicule shake his confidence. Jason and his crew, however, weren't content with mere mockery. They continued to hound Malik, determined to prove that he was lying or cheating somehow. One afternoon, as Malik packed up his things after school, Jason cornered him near the lockers. "You think you're so smart, huh? Jason sneered, shoving Malik lightly against the wall. Everyone knows you stole that idea from someone else. Malik clenched his fists but kept his cool. I didn't steal anything, he shot back, meeting Jason's gaze without flinching. Everything I built is mine. Jason smirked, clearly enjoying the confrontation. Prove it, he taunted. If you're such a genius, why don't you show us how it works? Or are you too scared? Malik didn't respond. He knew better than to rise to the bait. Instead, he pushed past Jason and walked away, his mind racing. He couldn't risk showing anyone his invention. Not yet. Not until the competition was over and the truth came out. Despite the constant pressure, Malik found solace in small victories. Mrs. Thompson, the kind teacher who had supported him throughout the process, became a source of encouragement. She checked in regularly, asking if he needed help refining his presentation or practicing his speech. Her belief in him meant more than she realized. It reminded Malik that not everyone doubted him. One evening, as Malik sat at home reviewing his notes, his mother walked into the room. She looked tired, her face lined with exhaustion from another long day of work. But when she saw the sketches and diagrams spread across the table, her expression softened. "What's all this?" she asked gently, pulling up a chair beside him. "It's my project," Malik explained, his voice tinged with pride. "I built something big." His mother studied the papers silently for a moment before looking at him. "You've always been special, sweetheart," she said softly. "Don't ever let anyone make you feel otherwise." Tears welled up in Malik's eyes, but he blinked them away quickly. For the first time in weeks, he felt a glimmer of hope. No matter what happened next, he knew he had people rooting for him, even if it was just one person. Finally, the day of the announcement arrived. The winners of the competition were to be revealed at a grand ceremony held in the city auditorium. Malik debated whether to attend. On one hand, he feared the embarrassment of losing in front of everyone. On the other hand, he couldn't bear the thought of missing the opportunity to see his hard work recognized. In the end, he decided to go. Dressed in his best clothes, a slightly faded suit jacket borrowed from a neighbor and a pair of polished shoes, he boarded the bus early that morning, clutching his ticket tightly in his hand. As he stepped off the bus and approached the auditorium, he felt a mix of excitement and dread. The building loomed ahead, its towering doors opening to reveal a sea of faces inside. When Malik took his seat in the back row, he scanned the crowd nervously. Most of the attendees were older students, accompanied by proud parents and mentors. Malik sat alone, feeling out of place among the polished presentations and confident smiles. But as the ceremony began, he reminded himself of why he was there: to prove that brilliance isn't defined by background, appearance, or privilege. One by one, the winners were announced. Third place went to a team from a prestigious private school, followed by second place awarded to a group of university students. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for: first place, and the winner of this year's national science competition is... The announcer paused dramatically, scanning the audience before continuing. "Malik Johnson." The room fell silent. For a split second, Malik thought he had misheard. But then the applause erupted, echoing through the auditorium as hundreds of eyes turned toward him. Stunned, Malik rose from his seat, his legs trembling as he made his way to the stage. As he accepted the trophy, he glanced out at the crowd, searching for familiar faces. There was Mrs. Thompson, clapping enthusiastically in the front row, tears streaming down her cheeks. And there, standing near the back, was his mother, beaming with pride despite the fatigue etched into her features. When Malik stepped up to the microphone to deliver his acceptance speech, his voice wavered at first. But as he spoke, he grew more confident, pouring his heart into every word. "I want to thank my mom, who works tirelessly to provide for our family, and Mrs. Thompson, who believed in me when no one else did," he began. "And to everyone who doubted me, I want you to know that adversity can be a catalyst for greatness. Just because someone looks different or comes from a different background doesn't mean they're any less capable. Sometimes the quietest voices are the ones that roar the loudest. The audience erupted into applause once again, many people rising to their feet. As Malik stepped off the stage holding his trophy tightly, he felt a sense of triumph unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He had proven himself, not just to the bullies, not just to the skeptics, but to the entire world. Back at school, the reaction was mixed. Some students congratulated him, their attitudes shifting overnight now that they knew he had won. Others, like Jason, seethed with jealousy, unable to accept that Malik had succeeded where they had failed. But Malik didn't. Care. He had accomplished what he set out to do, and nothing could take that away from him. Still, Malik knew this was only the beginning. Winning the competition opened doors he never thought possible, offering scholarships and opportunities that would change his life forever. But more importantly, it gave him a platform to inspire others, to show them that no matter how hard life gets, perseverance and determination can lead to greatness. As Malik stood in front of his locker the next morning, surrounded by curious classmates eager to learn more about his invention, he allowed himself a small smile. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. And deep down, he knew the best was yet to come. Winning the national science competition changed Malik's life in ways he never imagined. Overnight, he went from being the quiet, overlooked boy at school to a local celebrity. News outlets picked up his story, highlighting his journey from a bullied student to a celebrated young inventor. Reporters interviewed him on television, asking questions about his invention and how he managed to overcome so many challenges. At first, Malik found the attention overwhelming. Cameras flashed in his face, microphones were thrust toward him, and strangers stopped him on the street to congratulate him. Some people called him an inspiration, others marveled at his brilliance. But despite the praise, Malik remained grounded. He knew that fame wasn't what mattered. It was the message behind his success that truly counted. One of the biggest changes came when scholarships started pouring in. Universities across the country reached out, offering full rides and opportunities to study advanced sciences and engineering. For the first time in his life, Malik had options. He could choose where to go, what to study, and how to shape his future. It was a freedom he had never dreamed of, especially growing up in a household where money was always tight. But Malik didn't just focus on himself. As the spotlight grew brighter, he used his platform to speak out about issues close to his heart. During interviews, he talked openly about the struggles he faced as a child, how poverty and bullying tried to hold him back, but ultimately fueled his determination. He encouraged other kids who felt invisible or underestimated to keep pushing forward, reminding them that their circumstances didn't define their potential. His words resonated deeply with people. Parents wrote letters thanking him for inspiring their children. Teachers shared his story in classrooms, using it as a lesson in resilience and perseverance. Even some of the bullies from his old school approached him, apologizing for their behavior and admitting they had misjudged him. While Malik accepted their apologies graciously, he made it clear that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. "What you did shaped me," he told them honestly. "It taught me to fight harder and dream bigger." As months passed, Malik settled into his new life. He enrolled in a prestigious university, where he continued developing groundbreaking technologies. His invention, the device that converted sound waves into usable energy, caught the attention of major tech companies. They offered partnerships and funding to help him refine the concept further. Malik jumped at the chance, knowing this was an opportunity to turn his idea into something that could benefit millions of people worldwide. But Malik's ambitions didn't stop there. Inspired by his own struggles, he founded a non-profit organization aimed at supporting underprivileged youth. The program provided resources, mentorship, and hands-on learning experiences to kids who might not otherwise have access to such opportunities. Malik wanted to ensure that no child felt trapped by their circumstances, that every kid, regardless of background, had the tools to chase their dreams. Volunteering became a huge part of Malik's routine. On weekends, he visited schools and community centers, sharing his story and encouraging students to believe in themselves. He often brought along prototypes of his inventions, letting kids tinker and experiment. Seeing their eyes light up with curiosity reminded Malik of his own childhood, sitting alone in his room late at night, dreaming of a better world. One day, while visiting a middle school in a low-income neighborhood, Malik met a boy who reminded him of himself. The boy was shy, sitting quietly in the corner while his classmates eagerly crowded around the demonstration table. After the session ended, Malik noticed the boy lingering behind, staring at one of the gadgets with fascination. "What's your name?" Malik asked gently, crouching down to meet the boy's gaze. "Eli," the boy whispered, fidgeting nervously with his hands. "You seem interested in this stuff," Malik said, gesturing to the gadget. "Do you like building things?" Eli nodded hesitantly. I want to make robots someday," he admitted, his voice barely audible. Malik smiled warmly. "That's awesome. You know, I used to dream about building things too, but I didn't have anyone to show me how. If you're serious about it, I can help you get started." Eli's eyes widened in disbelief. "Really?" "Of course," Malik replied. "Everyone needs someone to believe in them. Maybe I can be that person for you." From that moment on, Malik took Eli under his wing, mentoring him and providing guidance whenever he needed it. Watching Eli grow more confident over time filled Malik with a sense of purpose. He realized that helping others achieve their dreams was just as rewarding as achieving his own. Despite all his success, Malik never forgot where he came from. He stayed connected to his roots, visiting his old neighborhood regularly and checking in on his mom, who continued working tirelessly to support their family. She often joked that she needed to update her resume now that she was the mother of a famous inventor. But Malik knew how much her sacrifices had meant to him. Without her love and encouragement, he wouldn't be where he was today. Even Jason, the ringleader of the bullies from middle school, eventually crossed paths with Malik again. One evening, as Malik was leaving a fundraising event for his nonprofit, he spotted Jason standing awkwardly near the exit. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jason cleared his throat and stepped forward. I wanted to say sorry," Jason muttered, avoiding eye contact. "For everything. I didn't understand back then. I was stupid." Malik studied him for a moment before nodding slowly. "Apology accepted," he said simply. "But remember this. Actions matter more than words. Use yours wisely." Jason looked taken aback but nodded in agreement. From that point on, their relationship shifted. While they weren't exactly friends, there was mutual respect, a recognition that both of them had grown since those difficult days in middle school. Years later, Malik stood on stage at a global technology summit, addressing thousands of attendees. Behind him, a massive screen displayed images of his latest project, a revolutionary system designed to bring affordable renewable energy to underserved communities around the world. As he spoke passionately about innovation and equality, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he'd come. He thought about the bullies who once tried to tear him down, the teachers who doubted him, and the countless nights he spent doubting himself. Each obstacle had shaped him, teaching him lessons he carried throughout his life. And now, standing here as a symbol of hope and possibility, Malik knew he had fulfilled his purpose. When the applause finally died down, and Malik stepped off the stage, he allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. Winning the competition had been a turning point, but it wasn't the end of his journey. It was only the beginning. With each passing day, Malik proved that true greatness isn't about fame or accolades. It's about using your gifts to lift others up, creating a ripple effect of change that lasts long after the spotlight fades. And Malik? He was just getting started. Years rolled by, and Malik's impact on the world grew far beyond what anyone could have predicted. What started as a single invention, a device that converted sound waves into usable energy, evolved into a movement. His nonprofit organization flourished, reaching thousands of children in underserved communities through workshops, mentorship programs, and hands-on learning labs. Malik gave kids tools they desperately needed to explore their potential. He didn't just teach them science or engineering, he taught them resilience, creativity, and the power of believing in themselves. One summer, Malik organized a large-scale innovation camp for kids from all over the country. The camp was held in a sprawling facility, equipped with state-of-the-art technology, donated by companies eager to support his cause. Children of all ages arrived, many carrying nothing more than notebooks and big dreams. Some came from cities, others from rural towns, but they all shared one thing, a spark of curiosity that Malik recognized instantly. On the first day of the camp, Malik gathered the kids in a large auditorium. Standing at the podium, he looked out at the sea of young faces staring back at him. "Welcome," he began, his voice warm and inviting. "This week isn't about winning awards or impressing anyone. It's about discovering who you are and what you're capable of. You might not see it yet, but each of you has something special inside you. My job and yours is to bring it out." The room erupted in cheers, and Malik couldn't help but smile. These were the moments that fueled him, the belief that he could make a difference not just in one life but in countless lives. Throughout the week, Malik worked closely with the kids, guiding them through projects and experiments. One group caught his attention, 3 siblings who had traveled hours to attend the camp. They were shy at first, hesitant to speak up during brainstorming sessions. But as the days went on, they began coming alive, their eyes lighting up with excitement as they worked together on an idea. By the end of the week, the siblings presented their project, a solar-powered water filtration system designed to help families in remote areas access clean drinking water. When they finished explaining their design, the entire room burst into applause. Malik approached them afterward, shaking their hands and congratulating them on their hard work. "You guys are amazing," he told them sincerely. "Don't ever stop dreaming. The world needs people like you." Tears welled up in the youngest sibling's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "We never thought we could do something like this." Malik knelt down to her level, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You can do anything you set your mind to. Remember that." As Malik continued his work, he became a symbol of hope, not just for underprivileged youth, but for anyone facing adversity. His story inspired books, documentaries, and even a feature film. People around the globe followed his journey, marveling at how a quiet boy from a small town had risen above every obstacle to become a beacon of change. But despite the fame, Malik remained humble. He still lived modestly, choosing to channel most of his earnings into his non-profit and other charitable initiatives. Whenever reporters asked him about his success, he always redirected the focus to the people he aimed to help. "This isn't about me," he'd say. "It's about giving others the chance to shine." Over time, Malik noticed a shift in society. More organizations began prioritizing STEM education for underprivileged communities. Schools adopted programs inspired by his methods, emphasizing creativity and problem-solving skills alongside traditional academics. Even governments took notice, implementing policies to support young innovators from diverse backgrounds. Malik often reflected on how different his own childhood could have been if resources like these had existed back then. He imagined a world where no child felt invisible, where talent wasn't wasted because of circumstances beyond their control. And while he knew there was still much work to be done, he took pride in knowing he had sparked a wave of change. Decades later, Malik stood on stage once again, this time accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award at a global humanitarian conference. The audience included scientists, activists, educators, and leaders from every corner of the globe. As he stepped up to the microphone, the crowd rose to its feet, applauding thunderously. Malik waited patiently for the noise to subside before speaking. "When I was a boy," he began, his voice steady and heartfelt, "I dreamed of making a difference, but I never imagined it would happen like this. I owe everything to the people who believed in me when I doubted myself. To my mom, who worked tirelessly to keep us going. To Mrs. Thompson, who saw potential in a quiet student. And to the countless kids I've met along the way, whose brilliance reminds me why I do what I do." He paused, scanning the audience with a soft smile. "Life doesn't give us guarantees. We'll face challenges, setbacks, and moments when we feel like giving up. But here's the truth. Greatness isn't reserved for the privileged or the lucky. It belongs to those who refuse to let adversity define them. It belongs to anyone willing to fight for their dreams, no matter how impossible they seem." The room erupted in applause once more, but Malik wasn't finished. "Let's continue building a world where everyone has a chance to succeed, where talent isn't wasted and opportunity isn't limited by background. Because when we lift each other up, we create a future brighter than any one of us could achieve alone." After the ceremony, Malik mingled with attendees, sharing stories and exchanging ideas. A young girl approached him shyly, clutching a sketchbook filled with drawings of machines and gadgets. She reminded him so much of himself, curious, passionate, and brimming with untapped potential. "Hi," she said softly, holding out her sketchbook. "I made some designs. Do you think they're good?" Malik opened the book and flipped through the pages, his heart swelling with admiration. "They're incredible," he replied, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "Keep working on them. Someday you'll change the world." Her face lit up with joy, and Malik felt a familiar warmth in his chest. This was why he kept going, to inspire the next generation of dreamers and doers. As the night drew to a close, Malik stepped outside, gazing up at the stars. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the struggles, the victories, and the countless lives he had touched along the way. No matter where life took him next, he knew one thing for certain: his purpose was far from over. And so, Malik Johnson, the once bullied boy turned visionary leader, continued forward, driven by the belief that every person, no matter their starting point, has the power to leave a lasting mark on the world.